an excellent international platform for the academicians, researchers, and budding students around the world to share their research findings and to find international linkage for future collaboration in the areas of business, management, and economics. Previously, ICBMR had been held in Jakarta, Manila, Ho Chi Minh, Seoul, Kyoto, Lombok, Padang, and last year in Bali. This year, ICBMR is held as a virtual conference where there will be online presentations, meet the editors, doctoral colloquium, and webinar keynote speeches. The theme for the 13th ICBMR is leveraging business and management knowledge in digital era. The first keynote speaker is Professor J. Bin On from the Graduate School of International Studies, Seoul National University, will give a speech about financial technology in emerging countries. The second speaker, Professor Riza Cassidy, Associate Editor for Journal of Strategic Marketing, an international journal of consumer studies from Macquarie University, would give a speech about marketing in digital era. On the last day, Professor Phau, Editor-in-Chief of Asia-Pacific Journal of Marketing and Logistics from Curtin University, will discuss how to publish an article in a reputable journal. All accepted full papers will be published in the conference proceedings with ISBN and proposed to be indexed by Thomson Reuters Conference Proceedings Citation Index. The supporting journals for ICBMR 2020 are Indonesian Capital Market Review, ASEAN Marketing Journal, and the Southeast Asian Journal of Management. Selected outstanding papers will be invited for fast-track review and publication in the International Journal of Business and Society and International Journal of Economics and Management. Our special thanks to our sponsors Bank Central Asia, Bank Rakyat Indonesia, and Telin by Telkom Indonesia.
Faculty of Economics and Business, University of Indonesia, FEBUI, is a modern, dynamic, and welcoming campus, a place to study for the nation's future leaders. Situated in two strategic locations, Depok and Salemba, we are fully committed to contribute to the development of knowledge in economics and business, and to nurture future leaders with a sense of social responsibility and the ability to address global environmental changes. For over 65 years, we have produced the country's best graduates that will potentially play important roles both in the Indonesian government and the private sector.
So my name is Thijs Hesselmans, I'm from Belanda, and one of this Universitas Indonesia is that the campus is really green. It's wonderful.
In the future, we are aiming to become Asia's leading economics and business learning center, which contributes to the development of Indonesia and the global community. FEBUI has three departments: the Department of Economics, the Department of Management, and the Department of Accounting, with specified courses such as more than 65 years of experience as a prestigious educational institution in Indonesia, we have become one of the few that consistently produce the best graduates in the country. The development of FEBUI is not only limited in the standard degree education, but also in non-degree education, research, and consulting. Through cooperation, we always strive to provide benefits for both parties involved.
Hi, I'm Narumi Ishikawa from Japan Chiba University. Thank you for FEB to expanding my knowledge. Thank you for University of Indonesia. Terima kasih banyak.
Currently, there are plenty of FEBUI graduates who occupy key positions both in the government and private companies, local and international. The Faculty of Economics and Business University of Indonesia welcomes the entire academic community with open arms to achieve a bright and successful future together.
Part of FEBUI.
Be part of FEBUI for a better future.
FEBUI, massive campus with great people and unique local food.
ICBMR is organized by Management Research Center, Department of Management, Faculty of Economics and Business, Universitas Indonesia, that aims to provide an excellent international platform for the academicians, researchers, and budding students around the world to share their research findings and to find international linkage for future collaborations in the areas of business, management, and economics. Previously, ICBMR had been held in Jakarta, Manila, Ho Chi Minh, Seoul, Kyoto, Lombok, Padang, and last year in Bali. This year, ICBMR is held as a virtual conference where there will be online presentations, meet the editors, doctoral colloquium, and webinar keynote speeches. The theme for the 13th ICBMR is leveraging business and management knowledge in digital era. The first keynote speaker is Professor J. Bin On from the Graduate School of International Studies, Seoul National University, will give a speech about financial technology in emerging countries. The second speaker, Professor Riza Cassidy, Associate Editor for Journal of Strategic Marketing, an international journal of consumer studies from Macquarie University, would give a speech about marketing in digital era. On the last day, Professor Phau, Editor-in-Chief of Asia-Pacific Journal of Marketing and Logistics from Curtin University, will discuss how to publish an article in a reputable journal. All accepted full papers will be published in the conference proceedings with ISBN and proposed to be indexed by Thomson Reuters Conference Proceedings Citation Index. The supporting journals for ICBMR 2020 are Indonesian Capital Market Review, ASEAN Marketing Journal, and the Southeast Asian Journal of Management. Selected outstanding papers will be invited for fast-track review and publication in the International Journal of Business and Society and International Journal of Economics and Management. Our special thanks to our sponsors Bank Central Asia, Bank Rakyat Indonesia, and Talent by Telkom Indonesia.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the second day of the International Conference on Business and Management Research, ICBMR 2020, Leveraging Business and Management Knowledge in Digital Era. ICBMR 2020, Leveraging Business and Management Knowledge in Digital Era is brought to you by Bank Sentral Asia, Bank Rakyat Indonesia, Telin by Telkom Indonesia, and organized by Management Research Center, Universitas Indonesia. Distinguished participants, allow me to announce the webinar session rules. Participants can fill in the list of attendance form provided in the Zoom chat room. Participants can ask questions via Q&A room by mentioning their full name, institution, and question. Moderator will select and read questions from participants. Ladies and gentlemen, it's been a pleasure for us this afternoon to have Professor Ian Phau, Editor-in-Chief of Asia Pacific Journal of Marketing and Logistics, as our keynote speaker. Good afternoon, Professor Ian. Good afternoon, Professor Ian.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Professor Ian Phau.
Well, thanks, for inviting me, for this for this keynote. Well, I'm given a topic, all right, and it makes complete sense, for me as well. So I'm really, into the research, side of things. I like, to talk a little bit, about publishing, all right, or putting in, an article, in a peer review, journal. Now, I am actually not too, sure, of our participants, today. So I thought I'll do a bit of a balance, and start maybe really a bit from scratch, as in, why are we publishing, and then I'll go into the the more focused or concentrated area of how to deal, with with reviewers. For instance, if someone, you get through the first round, and what's going to happen next, and how do you deal, with those things. So bear with me, with this, and I think it's easier for me if I were to finish the talk first, and then we can open up, for questions later on. And I promise, that I'll do a sort of an accelerated one, so that there'll be more opportunities for questions, and answer. So I see whether I can actually share my screen, because I've got some information, that I can bring, together. I think I will go with this one and go with this. All right, it should work. All right. Okay, so once again, I'd like to thank the the organizers to give me an opportunity, to share, this work, with all of you. Okay, I think the first question we'd ask ourselves, all right, is that why are we publishing? All right, now I got a list of questions here, and this was a list of responses over here, which I actually did a poll quite some time back. Why? So some, need your publication purely because it's your job, and you have got to go for a promotion. The job part is recently I just did a recruitment, exercise, and obviously one of the things that we look at is what journals, have you published, at. And then obviously I mentioned, in an early session, that ranking is very subjective to a certain extent, because it depends on what which ranking a table you're looking at. So of course there's the ABDC, then you got the Schemago, and so on and so forth. And everyone looks at different things, but generally, if you compare, all these different journals, right, they are they're quite similar, in some way. But obviously, different countries, different universities will look at different things, as well. So the reason why I brought in the promotion, and the job part over here is that sometimes you may need to adhere or to stick, to what is required, for your job. Of course, there's also another area, that we all have to look at in terms of interest. I have got lots of colleagues in my school, and from other universities as well. They publish just because they got a passion. They want to look at certain topics that they look at, and others, will be more strategic and treating this as more as a game, for that. Now, that's probably not my main focus, of today's talk. But then I think, in a general sense, my 2 cents worth, to all new, researchers over there. I don't have to worry about the experienced ones. For the new, researchers, is that you have got to carve a niche for yourself. You do not want to be a cherry picker, and just publish anything anywhere. And today I do topic A, tomorrow I do topic B, that kind of thing. It's good to have to focus, on a large umbrella of areas that you can call your area, of expertise. Notwithstanding, anything, from my side. I started off, well, I'm a little bit different though, because I come from the industry before I joined academia. And my work, has got a lot to do with country of origin, a lot of counterfeiting. That was my last job when I worked for LVMH. And of course, I stumbled upon, luxury, the luxury industry as well. So and the thing about it is that if you were to focus on one particular area, you can build, your expertise, and you can build, your area in different contexts. Right? So as a new budding researcher, you have got to look at this as well. And obviously, also this has got to be aligned, to your to your work as well. For instance, you work in a university that has got a cluster, of researchers that look in a particular area. You may have to tick that box, all right, just to work, with your organization. But there's nothing wrong, with also pursuing your own passion, and look into something else. So I thought this is 2 cents that I look into it. Now, I always look at when you put a paper into a journal, or a choice, of a journal, you use the marketing approach, all right? As in, you have got to package a paper somehow. So you choose a target market, as in if you've got a product, of yourself. In this particular case, will be a specific journal. Sometimes it also could be a cluster, of journals. So if I'm looking at the Emerald, site, so you've got or some journals out there, right? For instance, you've got the journal. If you're doing branding, so you may want to look at Journal of Brand Management versus, Journal of Product and Brand Management, and something, along the line. And you look at what, the context, or the content, of those published, papers, and you can find a feel, for yourself, on that. Now, with that target or market journal, in sight, then you can build your product and package the needs for them. So for instance, right, some journals may, like for example, I always like, a journal called IMM, Industrial Marketing, Management Journal. But my work is not in that area. My work is very much consumer based. So the question is that then is really not something that I have got work to publish with, all right? So again, why is a paper that's rejected, from a journal? That could be very much be the reason. Now, looking at I'll come to that, later on, for another thing. So the tip 1 that I would like to share with you, all right, is to do a strong environmental scanning. So you have a journal in mind, and then you review some of the articles in that journal and look at the more recent one, because don't forget that times change, as well. So you may want to argue, as in, is this what? So if you look at some journal that you have in mind and look at the papers published in 2010, they may not be what they are expecting now, because the scope, of the papers may change through the years. Then you have to look at, the methodologies used, the sample sizes expected, whether they use whether they accept conceptual papers or not, and then whether they pay more attention on the managerial implication. So I share some examples, with you. I work very closely with the Journal of International Consumer Marketing, and they make it very, very clear. If your particular paper is based on one country, you will be just rejected straight away. All right. And then the other one that I work with, International Marketing Review, they said exactly the same thing. So I think it's very much of the international, aspect, of it. They like to do a lot of cross-national studies instead of just single country, study. So do not be, upset, when a paper got rejected, because you need to find out why. It could be that it is not based, on that context. All right, of course, you're going to structure the study and manuscript, accordingly. Every journal has got its guidelines. You've got to stick, to that, as well. And sometimes you can play that little game, as well, as in more strategic game, in the sense, that do you want to target journals which are from the same publisher? All right, so what I mean by this is, I give an example. If you look at Elsevier, and you look at Emerald, the 2 big publishers over there, the expected way of writing your abstract is different. So if you look at Emerald, they got the structured abstract. They give you the headings, and you put in whatever you need to. As compared to another journal from another publisher, it will be the general 150-word abstract. All right, so these are the things that annoy, the editors very much if you don't follow that. And editors are smart, all right? Don't forget, or even the associate ones, all right? The question, is that they know that this paper, you just put it in, you could have been rejected from another journal, and you just plug it in, here without even making changes to it. So you have to be very careful. The other thing that you have to take a look at, all right, is also to look into the journal, whether they have any changes in the guidelines. For example, the journal that I edit, we are now moving into less than 8,000 words. It used to be 12,000. And this is according, to the Emirates, a new strategy that they have. You do not want to go, because the thing is quite tedious to actually submit a paper going through, all the process, only to be told later on, oh, please cut your paper, down to 8,000 words. You've got to start the process all over again. So it's better not to make assumption and check, all the guidelines one more time, before you look into it. In your paper, you always look at the strengths, all right, and you minimize, the weaknesses, and more and more so, all right. I like to see more papers that in the first paragraph state exactly what the idea, of this paper is, sell it, or promote it right from the beginning. Talk about the strengths, but do not make too bold a statement, because you set the bar so high, and then at the end of the day, if you do not follow it through, all right, then it becomes a major weakness, in your paper. All right. The other thing, of course, you also have to look at it from strategic point of sight, all right, is that it's good to be passionate, it's good to be strong, to say that, I'm good at this, I'm good at that, but please do put your ego aside. You cannot be good in everything. You'll be nice, they can be good in everything, but there will always be someone who is better, in one aspect, of it. For example, some people, some, of your authors are very good in crafting very coherently or very clearly. There's lots of clarity on arguing, from the rationalization, or the justification of certain theories to support, a particular conceptual order and things like that. They could be very good in the literature review, side. All right, but they may not be as strong, in the methodology, and that is whereby it's good to find a co-author, in that. And there are some, I know of many researchers that love to do the analysis and write, but they hate to write the literature review. So that cooperation may be very good, in that. And there's another thing, all right? Check with your own institution as well. Some institutions like you to publish with co-authors, right, from from an international perspective as well. What is it called? Let me start again. Authors, from cross collaborations with other, universities, right, may also be something, that each university is looking at because of internationalization. So I'm trying really, to just share this with you, and you have to take note of your own institution, all right? Because there may be, issues looking at this. I'm talking to a lot of other Australian researchers as well, in a sense, that sometimes, journal articles may be an outcome, from an international grant, or your own, how to put it, in Australia, we have got our category 1 grant, which is competitive grants, from the government bodies, and some of them expect, you to have a research group that is not just from one institution, but a mixture of institution, and they want also an international perspective. That means you may have a investigator or a partner, investigator from another country. Now, so it works the same thing, when you put in a journal article, as well. But that put aside, it is also a very good, point, whereby you can actually bring in researchers, with different expertise, to come up with the best paper. So there's something, that you want to look at as well. Of course, you also talk about the critical mass, with more people involved, in your article. You can play, with the different skill set. Something that I mentioned, earlier on, whether someone can write, very, very well, someone can argue and, very well, but there are others who will be very strong, in your, in the analysis part, and able to come out, with the best or the most relevant, way of putting it together. So this point, about this critical mass, right, are some of the things that I mentioned earlier on. Go back to university goals. Of course, the other question is that, are you going to stay with the university, for good? Do you see yourself, after 3-4 years, you may want to look for, a change of scene and go to another university? And this is the point that I'm making earlier on. You need to have a balance. So you have got to look at, what your institution expects you to do, But at the same time, you also have got that, you need to have that flexibility or the plan ahead strategy, that it may change. All right. So but having said that, the university goals are not that different. All right. So most of them may have the same thing. It is very, very shocking. I have got to say something. All right. That I got. There's one very young researcher came to speak to me from another Australian university, and he was basically reprimanded, for working with researchers, right, from another faculty in the same university. Now that comes across very odd, for me. But again, this is what I mean, that every department, may have their own strategy. I cannot argue that they are wrong because they may have their KPIs, to look at. So something, that you need a balance, of some kind of, obviously, for this. Now, like I say, looking for the marketing aspect, you have to scan the market for buyers, who would buy, go into that. So this is whereby you have got to look at all the directories out there, listing all the disciplinary journals, available to you, compare the various journals with rankings, all the studies that have been done. So things like, your ABDC, your Scopus, your ERA, that is very much Australia, Thomson, and so on. All right, have all these, ideas and plan ahead, because you also want, a strong, a sort of a plethora, of different journals, that you have published, in, and the other, issue. Okay, now this is just me per se, and I did mention this in an earlier, session. Ranking is one thing. But more and more so, if many of you are concerned, I wouldn't say concerned, but you want to be more out there, all right, based on Google Scholar, or Scopus, citation in terms of a H index, and things like that, then you have got to produce papers. Less is okay, all right, but you're going to produce papers with more impact. So, so that is whereby I can't say that you can play the game, for that, but you want to do something that has got impact, and that I think is a high motivational, value, for yourself, as well. So, you work on something which has got a strange, I put in strange inverted commas, finding that nobody, expected, and then other authors can actually cite you on that or replicate your paper, and things like that. This is how, you can build on your citation as well as your H index. So that goes back to what I said, earlier on. Try to work on an area, and not try to be too cherry picking, kind of thing, and just publish whatever it is. Now I know that this is going to kill, a lot of how to put it, the feelings, or plans, for a lot of people. Many researchers have spoken to me, at the beginning of this year, or maybe even in the first half, of this year. Even my publisher, told me or wanted me, to have a special issue, on COVID-19, and so on and so forth. This is one thing, that I thought, that is not, and there's nothing wrong, and I'm a bit worried that this is being recorded, but this is just a personal feeling, all right, for that. COVID-19 is very much a context, at the moment, all right? Now, of course, it were going to last 1-2 years, or things like that. I think, that if you're talking about COVID-19, it should be classified more of a catastrophe, of some kind, instead of just putting in as COVID-19, in any of your publication, because you are limiting citations in the future. So what I mean by this, all right, if you think about it, all right, 2003, we have got SARS, which basically is a big thing, at that point in time, affected many businesses. I still remember I was running the AMS, conference in Curtin, and we ran through a lot of problems because people can't travel, and all those things at that particular time. Now, there are many papers published at that time, on SARS. Now, no one has cited the paper following years, after, because it's totally irrelevant. Now, when did the SARS paper come in now being cited? Is because, of COVID-19. Now, it took 17 years, to do that. So in that 17 years, there is a vacuum in whatever you're publishing, on that. So I'm not saying not to look at COVID-19, but COVID-19 is just a context. you have got to push, what is the key, aspect, of your particular study. So it's just a personal view. I didn't even have a special, issue, of COVID-19 because I do not want to encourage that. All right. So about many other, but just think about it. You just scan through, anyway, on Google Scholar, just look at how many journals are having a special issue on COVID-19. All right. So and also because many of them are very quickly done. All right. So because you have to beat, the clock, so to speak. So then the quality of the paper becomes also an issue. All right. Now, you need to have contingency plans, as your tip 5. So basically, have a funnel down, approach. So plan your paper, put it at the highest, level, make sure that, methodologically it is sound, the idea, is sound, your analysis is sound, the findings, is of some, interest, to people, and then you go on to your top ranked journal that you want. Now, doesn't mean that you will get it through. Then you can then, sort of, all right, if you can't get it through, then you go to the second journal. And then if you didn't get through, you go on to the third, journal. So you can have a hierarchy of some kind, but you can always aim high, all right? Now, the other thing that you want to look at, obviously, under this circumstance, all right, is that, can you please not, is a paper rejected by one journal, give you some comments, and then what you do is that, I didn't get into that journal. And then what I'll do now is that I'll submit to a second, journal wholesale. Please don't do that, all right? You have got to make at least some changes to it, change the title a little bit, change, not change the findings, but do some write-up, for that, and so on. So let me say something, all right? People may or may not realize this. The market for this is very, very small, all right? It's very, very small. So I give an example, especially, where most of us may have some expert, area. I've come across many times, that a paper was sent to me for review. I review it, I give it a good review, 5-6 pages of what should be changed, what should be revised, some things should be considered and things like that. And I probably put in a major, revision. And then my other reviewer, whom I will probably have no idea who the person is, may have rejected the paper. All right, so the editor may choose to reject the paper. And then, of course, this author will send, to another journal. And guess what? It got back to me again. All right. And they have not even made a single change to the paper. And, basically, I just go back and say, look, I reviewed this another one. This was the review. Take a look at it. Are you going to change anything, along that side? So this is the question, all right, is that, as I said, the market is very small. Don't upset, anybody. And do make your due diligence, and make changes before you move, onto energy. It could be small changes. It could be, anything of that sort. Just be careful. All right. And also I still want to put aside. I talk about ego over here. Work can always be improved. All right. So give yourself, a chance to read what others have got to say. Now, I know that we are sitting on a conference, and there's a role, for conference proceedings. It's always good, to put your paper in a conference, make, all the an upgrade, of the paper, and then send it into the journal. Try not to do it wholesale because there will always be a check, on whether you are double dipping, on it. So and nothing, and there's nothing against, or I don't want to upset the organizers for that. No, but as a head of school, and also as a part, as the research lead, all right, and I sit in the Australian Research Council. We are, especially when you talk about ranking of universities, except in the IT area, or information system area. Conference papers are not ranked very highly, and in fact, right, for many, of the ranking, of universities, right, if you have a lot of conference, papers, it actually is a minus, for the research culture. Now, that does not mean that you do not go to a conference. I don't mean that. What I mean, right, is that you should give an opportunity for yourself, to actually publish your conference. Your conference as an abstract, conference paper as an abstract, or an extended abstract. All right, that is fine. But then if you put the full papers in, then you have the problem, of what others consider as double dipping, and then And when the paper is published, then we put into a journal later on, all right, you'll be saying that you are self-plagiarizing. So there is some issues that you have got to look at. But I will say, like a conference like this, all right, you got a chance to meet. Of course, this we are doing online, you know, but then when you put, you know, papers, you know, together, you get to learn or learn from other, you know, authors. There may be some similar areas that you can actually work with. And this is what I said earlier on, you know, trying to leverage on international you know, authors, right, that you can work, you know, together. And then sometimes, you know, there are many grants available that you also need to have cross-national collaboration. And this is a good place to be. So there's a thing, you know, about a conference that you can have got to leverage. And do not see a conference just as a holiday, go there, present a paper, do some sightseeing and go home, all right? So you know, this is whereby your network, all right, is very important. Now, I'm not sure whether this conference, you know, has that. I run a number of conferences, you know, even in Australia and SMAC and Gamma, GMC, you know, and so on. And I always, you know, make a suggestion, you know, to the organizers that you know, allow the participants, right, to come up with a special session. Now, a special session basically means that you may have 2 to 3, you know, authors, you know, of some kind, whereby they have an area, you know, of interest. They want to present, you know, some papers in that special, you know, session. And these papers may not make it into the proceeding. It's just more of an area, all right? And then get interested parties from all other you know, participants to come in, you know, and listen to what their ideas, you know, are, and then, you know, get people who are interested to collaborate, you know, together. I feel that there is such a strong, you know, way, you know, in which you can actually get research done. All right, something, you know, for all of us to think, you know, of. So this is what I've already mentioned, so I won't go through too much, you know, on that, you know, about proceedings. We just have to be very careful. There's no double dipping, you know, for that. Okay, I think this is something that people will you know what, you know, worry most, you know, or something, you know, that you know, all of us will get upset, you know, with the review, you know, as well. So the key idea over here is that every time a paper goes in, you want to go for review, because that is a double-blind, you know, process. It is a peer-reviewed journal, you know, and so on and so forth. Now, personally, I think it works. All right, and you have got to get, you know, to also pay attention to review. Of course, reviews, there are different types of reviews and so on. I'll talk a little bit about that, you know, later on. But the review process is something that you have to bear in mind that will help you to improve, you know, your paper. Now, there's other thing that you have to look at, all right, because generally, especially the top-end journals, all right, we're talking about, you know, the Journal of Management, Journal of Marketing, Journal of Marketing Research, you know, all those journals, usually they have got a tenure, you know, for the editor, you know, to change once every 3 years, you know, or so, 3 or 4 years, and then they will have a rollover year and so on. New editor coming in, they always like, you know, to put their stamp, you know, in things, you know, and look at something different, you know, and so on. The problem is that when you put in a paper, and then especially during the time whereby there is a switch, you know, of editors, the review that you put in, it may not be honored, all right? So these are things, you know, that you have got to monitor a little bit, and I can give you some suggestions, you know, of how to manage, you know, this, you know, as well. So my final word for you, all right, is that you should always get feedback on your manuscript before submission and give them some people credit. So in other words, you may have finished, you know, a particular paper, get another person to have a read in it and give you some comments. And then at the end of the article, you can acknowledge this person to say that they have given you some, you know, suggestions, you know, in the first draft. You don't have to be a co-author, you know, but it's good, you know, it's also good to let the editor, you know that you have also done some due diligence. You've actually got sort of a reviewer before, you know, you submit the paper, you know, for that. And sometimes when you are not sure, you know, whether the journal should go into it, like for example, if I've got a paper that has got to do with consumer studies of some kind, you know, then I can look into, I can write a quick email, you know, to the editor and check whether that paper is actually appropriate or not. It will be nice, you know, to give them just an abstract, you know, of that. I give you a personal experience, you know, for that. Better not to mention, you know, the journal, you know, it's a high-end journal. And I did ask the editor before, you know, whether whether the paper is relevant, to them or not. And the reason, for it is because it is using student sample. Now, I know that the journal will not accept student sample, but the paper is different. The paper is actually looking at whether students in an institution, will, well, the whole study was talking about the branding, of institutions. So the idea is that, if you come up from a top end, university, when you go to work, later on, does whether your university is accredited, considered as a premium, university will give you a better age, when you get to work. Now, the study was very tedious in the sense that I've got to track our students before they leave the university, and then 6 months later on, I got back to them and asked which institution you're looking at, will you get a job, and what other things, and so on. And the journal said it is okay. All right. Now, then we went through the whole review process for about 1.5 years, and they changed the editor, and the paper was accepted. They went through it a little bit, and then they rejected the paper based, on that. Now that is sad, all right, for us. It was heartbreaking, all right. But this is the point, all right, that we just have to accept it, as it is. But it's good to check, with them first, all right. The other thing I just want to highlight to you is that please don't write one paper, send it out to a journal, and you wait for the paper to be accepted before you go to another, another paper. You need to have a conveyor belt. So you must have at any one time have a couple of papers under first review, some in the second review, some finishing soon. You've got a project coming up and things like that, because you never know. One paper can be stuck, in that particular cover for a very long time. Now, again, I'm not going to name journals again. I actually have at one time, it was end of last year, I've got 8 papers in one journal, all right, under review for the last 4 years. And we submitted differently with different, authors and things like that. And then in one day, I got all the 8 journals rejected at one go, because there was a switch of the editor, and there was a huge backlog. And they decided, didn't fit again, they just get rid of it, the kind of thing. Now, it was not very fair to us, because some papers were done, in 3 years in the past, and then the data got a little bit dated. But these kind of things happen, all right. So just remember, right? You cannot just do one paper and then wait, all right. You should have, this conveyor belt process. This is how I put it. All right, I thought this is just a start of a start, for you, and I'm very worried about the timing. I think I'll spend rush a little bit through, with this. I thought that this is something that I like to share, very much, as an editor, on how that we should actually deal with reviewers, because sometimes, authors have that particular difficulty. Now, the basic things that the reviewers look for, experience from the reviewers are your paper, all right? Is that the right target market? How you design, how you package? Do you conform to the journal? The writing style is very, very important, all right? So please make sure you do that. Now, this is the number 4, is the number 1 thing that reviewers hate, all right? Make sure you do all the proofreading. Make sure you have got, there are no grammatical, mistakes, and 1 or 2 typo that is acceptable, but if it is, across, it becomes an issue. Please don't do track changes, in it. I know in the later part, all right, some journals may ask you for a track change, thing, but generally you should put in both. Put in a track with changes and comments and things like that. Put in the other one, which is clean, because it's very, very annoying for people to read, all right? Unless it is in the second or third, reiteration ready, then, then it's less and it is clearer, all right? And from your own side, they will want them to be professional, and you want them to love, your paper. Now, in the review, they will always give you comments, both positive and negative, and you have got to just, try, to sit down properly, find a chair, comfortable, and, sort of bring your blood pressure down and read it, all right, and with a clear mind. Accept both positive and negative. Remember, work can always be improved. Don't jump, at one particular comment and then you started to go, what is this person thinking of? You didn't read this and things like that. It could be what you are doing, but it wasn't very clearly articulated, in your paper. All right, so do that. Always don't expect, that with that a paper you submit, and then they will publish it, straight away and say that, oh, this is I accept it as it is. Now that is very, very rare. If you do get a paper that is published on the first submission, I will question the quality of the journal. I'll be very honest about this. All right. So be careful. When you look at this as well. Please don't even consider your predatory journals, because that is going to mar mar you for life for that, because you ever publish in a predatory journal. Now, the review process, normally you will get things like conditional acceptance, minor revision, and invite resubmit. You got a major revision, you may be resubmit, and then you got a desk rejection. So generally you get these four. I think most people are familiar with it. But what I thought I'll do is that I will talk a little bit about how you want to deal with this. Now, so the review process for the first three, cases that we mentioned earlier on, you generally have got 2 to 3 reviewers. Sometimes you get 4 to 5. Now, so I'm just speaking on just my journal. I always look at 2. Sometimes I put in 3. And then if you do get 4 or 5 reviewers, there is one reason, for it. And this is just my journal. I'm not sure the rest do that. Sometimes I look at the journal and then I look at the paper and I think that the paper is strong. And then the reviewers may have a different feeling, about the paper. But I probably think that, the paper may have some merits, and the reviewers may be a bit harsh. Or another area is that whereby I got one say that, this is such a strong paper, and then the other one say that this is such a bad paper. And then I'll probably invite a third one, to help me make that decision whether we should go to the next round. And sometimes I may have 2 very, very bad reviews, but I personally feel that there are some merits. I may actually go for another 2 more reviewers, fresh reviewers to look at it. So you have more, and then you can actually look at how best you can improve the paper. All right. Now, how many rounds could that be? It could be a first revision, second revision, third revision. Everything is possible. Can I say something? When you have done, the second review doesn't mean you will be accepted. You can go through 4 rounds, 5 rounds, and still get rejected. All right, like I said earlier on, 8 papers rejected on one day. All right, whereby one of the papers have gone through, R5. They've gone through 5 reviews. So no, even as an established publisher, I get papers rejected all the time. All right, so accept that. Understand that your reviewers are not paid, so therefore they're also doing their sort of their civic duty of that. So be nice to them as well in the way that you present your articles. There are different types of reviewers. Obviously, we also have to learn how to manage the quality of the reviews. So I just take one example for you. All right, now if you get a case 4, all right, which is desk rejection. All right. So what does that mean, all right? If you feel strongly, that they just reject, your paper, or it could even be, the first round they will come back and give you a rejection. You may want to look at why it is rejected. I said earlier on, it could be that it was just rejected purely because the paper doesn't fit the scope, of the journal. All right, that is understandable. Then you can go to another one. Now, but if you do get, if the reasons given to you, it could be that you didn't raise it properly, didn't put it properly, in the journal article. You can always, sort of ask nicely to the editor, is it because of this? If I change this, if I put that, would you be, okay, that you send it out for review? I have done that many times, all right? Because sometimes I miss certain things, or it wasn't clear anywhere. Or it could be a technical glitch, that kind of thing. So you can do that. And this can also be done, maybe I've come across, a particular case, whereby a paper have gone through 2 reviews and both the reviewers rejected the paper. And then the authors asked me, whether if they think that the comments can be dealt with, they want to make the changes, and is it possible, to go through, another round. And what I suggested to them is make all the changes, submit the paper to me again, and then what I'll do is I get 2 fresh reviewers, to look at the paper, and you will be much better because you have already improved, most of the problems, right, that is raised. So that is still possible to get published, all right? Just need to know that. Now, you also need to learn how to manage the editor, because we also have a hierarchy of reviewers. Generally, what I'll do from my side, I'm sure many of our colleagues do that as well. You will probably get, one from the editorial team, and then the advisory board team, and then you'll probably get another 1 or 2 outside, reviewers which may be what we call ad hoc reviewers. Sometimes we have to get everyone from outside purely because the topic is so strange, or not strange, but so obscure that we don't have anybody in that expert area. We may want to find something else elsewhere. All right, so that kind of thing is possible. Now, one thing probably most authors do not know is that you may have presented in this particular conference and you know of 2 people who just hate your paper, tell you how bad it is, and because it didn't conform, to what they want to do, or things like that. And again, I remember that, put ego aside. It could be that this that you are too defensive, but if you are very, very sure, that this but 2 or 3 people just hate your paper because there were some issues, beforehand, it is perfectly okay to tell the editor that you want to block reviewers. In other words, it's perfectly okay for them to ask because it's blind anyway, but then can you please not have these 2 reviewers to review my paper because, there were some, issues, with personality or things like that. All right. So this kind of thing, all right, can happen. Now, the editor may actually tell you, that you have got 4 weeks, that they will come back. The reviewers got 4 weeks to review the paper. Now, it's not really 4 weeks because, for example, I have got to invite someone to review your paper, and this person may take 3 weeks to agree, and they got 4 weeks after they agree. So it could be 7 weeks in total. That kind of thing. And COVID times, all right, I have huge difficulty with reviewers. Everybody has got to work extra hard, in the institution. You may not have time to do things, and so on and so forth. So expect some kind of delay, on this. Okay, I'm looking at timing. Please, when you do your revision, you incorporate every comment. Make sure that you have a detailed response, to that. Please try, to quote and cut out parts and paste in the response. So, for example, right, if there's a response to say that you need to do a better literature review, all right, and incorporating the theory, for instance. So, what you should do is that please don't put in a comment to say that, oh, this has been done. Now, what has been done? All right, you have got to explain that. Maybe you say that, oh, you can put a few lines over there to say that this was done because of this, and then you say that it can be shown below. So cut and paste, from the paper and put it over there. Now, it is not even funny, all right, to tell you, that you may only have made 1 sentence change, in your paper, but you put in 5 paragraphs to explain why you changed that. All right, so it's very common, to do that. All right, I thought I'd look at the third last point over here. Don't be afraid to say no, but justify. So if a reviewer asks you to change something, but you do not want to change because you've got a good reason why that is the case, say no, you can't change. Why is it the case? All right, and do that. All right. Now, the big thing about it is that when you got your reviewer 1 saying one thing and reviewer 2 say something else, and they are all in conflict, then you have to pick a side, who you want to go with. And if you still are having problems with that, check with the editors to see what the editor think. All right, and then the other thing is that reviewers also have an ego. All right, so we have got to review that a little bit. All right. Okay, I give you some quick examples, and I'm trying to make good time, right? Just in case I'll be chased off, for this. So I give you an example, right, for this. So for instance, there's a comment. The context of the paper makes good contribution. However, there are some presentation issues to address before it can be accepted. You need to undergo a thorough proofreading for spelling and error. Now, you really do not want to get a comment like this. So basically, your paper is not properly put together. All right. Now, so you can make the changes, but please make sure you give a good response, to it as well. So I give an example of a response. You should say, apologize, please apologize, all right, for not having paper proofread and things like that. Then you have got to say what you have done. So you can say that you have done employed the use of a professional UK editing service, to do all this. Or you can also say that you have found a very what is it called? Native, English speaker, that have actually done, some kind of proofreading for you. All right. Then you have to say things like, we hope you find a new manuscript to be significantly improved in this area. So be nice, with your comments. All right. Now, we sometimes may get bad reviewers, and I give an example. All right, the paper reports a typically misguided thing and so on and so forth. Then you look at the third point, right? The author is apparently an Australian working in Australia as an academic, with all the more reason why he or she should have heard me talk about and have read my articles on this and so on. Now, this is a reviewer with an ego. So you will, and then the worst part about this is that sometimes the reviewers say that you can guess who I am, make sure you read my paper, make sure you cite my paper, that kind of thing. Now, this is something that as an editor, I will not pay too much attention to. All right, then you can actually argue accordingly. And this is the time when you speak to the editor, as in, this is a blind review. Why are we supposed to guess, who the author is? And these are real examples that I'm giving you. All right, so this is one point where I say you don't be afraid to question, your reviewer. Now this is one thing, right, which I put it, and sorry, yeah, this is one thing, say that you should have read my measurement theory and also my advertising textbook. It should be easy for an author to guess who this reviewer, that means who that person is. This is against ethics, in publishing. So don't be afraid to question, this reviewer with the editor, all right, and check on that. Sometimes we also get a bad response from the comments. The paper, the reviewers come in and say that there are no strengths in this paper. Now, this is a super egoistic reviewer, and this is something as an editor I have got to deal with. And then, of course, it's something you've got to deal with as well. Check with the editor, of what kind of things you put in. So you can say something, like that if you want to, right? But I would not. But this is a cut and paste from someone else, who did put that. So I thought I'd share that with you. All right, now I'm going to finish it off before I'm chase out right on this. So the review process, there's always a time, into it. From the time that you submit to the time that you get accepted, you got 1 year, right? You are very lucky, all right? Generally that, and they still have got to find a time to publish your paper. Nowadays, it's very lucky because we are all doing online, and many papers have done early sites. So the paper could be published in 2021, but the paper is already on the website, all right? So that is good. There's a huge improvement, in that, because you do not want your data to be dated. I think coming to 2 years is quite normal to see the paper on print. 3-4 years is still possible and still get rejected. So bear with that in mind. And then it also depends on the editor time management. And me as an editor, I run into a big problem because APHML, since we got double, SSCI and we got ABDC, right? It has been met, all right? We publish something like 60 to 80 papers a year with about 5 to 6, issues. And last year, we already hit 1,000, manuscripts put in. Just for 2019, we only published something like 60 to 80. So you look at it, it's about 6%, acceptance rate. And this year has gone crazy again. So my time management, all right, will be I'm going to find reviewers, I'm going to find people to look at it and so on. So nowadays, what I usually do is that if I look at a paper and if it needs a lot of work, I don't want to waste your time. I actually ask you to make the changes and then possibly go to another journal, all right, for that. Editors may change. I've highlighted to you just now. All right, now give you some quick takeaway points. All right. Always before you submit, you may, if you're in doubt, check if the manuscript is appropriate with the editor. Write to them so that they will give you 2 cents worth. You get feedback on the manuscript before you submit and give them credit. I said that earlier on. Modify your paper based on your guidelines, especially when you change journals. When you move from one journal to the next journal, do not full sale, right, and just transfer it over. Make sure you look at the guidelines, make changes, and do something, to the paper. For yourself, make sure you leave ego at home. Do not be overly defensive, but also accept, any reviews or comments, all right, with some caution. Obviously, you have got to highlight, yourself to see whether your reviewer, is genuine, in whatever they say. Patience is still the game. Do not try, to write to the editor, after 3 years, where is my paper? How come I get my review? You're not doing your job. I get that all the time, from authors telling me that, oh, I need this paper accepted because, I need the paper accepted because this particular PhD student needs to graduate. Now, that is really not my job, all right? I try my best to push it, but then at the end of the day, the paper can still be, it can be rejected, in many ways. I think this is my really a big takeaway point. Please don't burn bridges with editor. It is a very, very small world. You go through in circles. I got more problems with plagiarism. All right, so be careful, with this, as well. I mean, to me, all right, if everything fails, the kind of thing, all right, I'm still Asian, all right, and I still believe I'm still superstitious, in many ways. Sometimes, all right, if a paper, it's a strong paper, but it's just don't have the luck, couldn't get in anywhere. Then there's the time, you're going to do some other things. I don't feng shui will probably be useful. I don't know, put a plant in your office, use a different color pen to write or things like that. For me, it actually works. For others, I do not know. But I think but you have to love the whole publishing thing. All right. If you hate it and just do it for the sake of your job, right, that kind of thing, then it's going to be very painful. But you can find love somewhere, in the publishing, especially in the topic, that you're interested in, that you want to find, something that you want to share, with the world. And every time you get a paper published, right, that joy, is something very difficult, for others to understand unless you are in this. So this is my 2 cents, for this. I will stop, sharing, on this. Stop share. All right, and then I'm not sure whether I've got any time, for questions, but I'll leave it back to the chair, for this session.
Thank you very much, Professor Ian, for the sharing. Before we move on to the Q&A session, I would like to remind to all of our participants to fill in the list of attendance form provided in the chat room. I think I will leave it to you, Professor, to pick few questions to be answered.
Sure. Are there questions? Okay, let me just see what we have. All right. Okay, I will look at, very quickly right through this. How much time do I have? Can I know? Or I can next 10, 15 minutes or what?
Probably around 15 minutes.
Okay, good. I just don't want to rush too much, all right, for that. Okay, so I've got the first question over here talking more about the waiting time, for review. I submit to a good journal. I see from the journal website the paper is still in process, but it's almost 1 year for, okay. All right, now, good question. I get this all the time as well. Now, you have got to look at that particular journal website, and sometimes you shouldn't pay too much attention to what is on the site. So I give an example. If I were to submit a paper, okay, let's say someone submit a paper to me, all right, to my journal, and then what I'll do is that I'll look for reviewers. So I will send to maybe 4 to 5 reviewers, see whether they want to accept it or not. Now they may accept, the paper, for me, and then I know that they've accepted. So in my system, I can see they've already accepted, not accepted the paper, but accepted to review, the paper. So they may have done that. But in my system, in Emerald's system, if the reviewer have not started downloading the paper and review the paper, it is noted over there as no one is reviewing the paper. If it makes sense, to you. So I may have the 2 reviewers already reviewing it, but because they have not gone onto the site to tick that box or to download anything, the system does not record it. So you have got to understand that. So it doesn't mean that the paper is not assigned. It is assigned, but the reviewers may not have done, their work, on the system. So that's one thing. Now, having said that, 1 year is a bit too long. If you have not heard anything of that sort, please don't just, send a paper to someone else. You have got to check with the editor what is the status, of the paper. And then if they say that, it is, I haven't got a reviewer of that kind of thing, then you may want to consider withdrawing the paper, but check with the editor first. Personally, 1 year is a bit too long. All right, I think, and there could be other reasons why the paper is still under trying to find a reviewer, because it could be a topic, that usually topics are not the big thing. It's the methodology. If someone uses some kind of fuzzy logic, which I always find difficulties getting reviewer, then it will take a longer time. All right. Shesa, in responding to some conflicting comments from the reviewer, I think I mentioned that earlier on. Conflicting comments is an ongoing thing, for that. So it's always good, to like I said just now, take one side. All right, you have got to take one side, and then you're going to answer to this reviewer, and then you have got to say that you agree more with the first reviewer, why this is the case, in response to your second reviewer. All right, so have that. Now, but if it is so conflicting, the kind of thing, then you have got to check with your editor first. because you still have got a managing editor to say what, because the final decision is still based, on the editor, and then the editor can tell you that go with this, what to be done, and things like that. All right, so check with that. There's some journal asking that publishing payment. All right, okay, okay, interesting. Things have changed now because I think many of the universities are giving support, to researchers, for open access, things like that. Now, can I share my personal view? Just my personal view. It may change in the next few years, all right? I actually think that at this point, in time, I will not go for open access. I'm sure if Emerald hears about this, they will kill me, on that. The idea is that there are too many predatory journals out there. And many institutions, many researchers may not know which one is predatory and which one is not. So every time that you have got a payment, involved, right, for open access, others may argue that it is the case. And sometimes when you go for job interviews and things like that, and people who are not familiar with it, they do not want to take the risk, that you have published in predatory journals. In our marketing and management field, there are very, very few papers on open access. But if you're talking about the sciences, you're talking about IS and information system, if you're talking about, especially in health sciences, in psychology, the kind of thing, predominantly the papers are on open access, then that is fine. All right, and then you can go for that because you got funding from university, anyway. For marketing and management, personally, just my personal view, for my own colleagues, all right, I will not go for that at this point, in time. All right, and also you also know those open access, you put in one paper, they come out with 2-3 lines, of changes, and then they will even promise you the paper will get published in next month. All right, now that is a really telltale sign. All right, you don't want this, to be on your record for the rest of your life. All right, now, can paper be already adding more variables to a journal? And for that, how to avoid self-plagiarizing? Okay, I don't quite understand this question. Let me read again. Can a paper who already okay, never mind. I try to decipher what it is. We reproduce adding more variables into a journal. And it's for that and how to avoid self-plagiarizing. All right, now, sometimes that you read an article and then you do your own work, and then now you want to add another what is it called? Another variable, to it. There must be a good reason. All right. So one thing that you can actually do is that you publish a paper and then you've got your new research direction. You may want to highlight, something. This morning I did another presentation that I put some notes here, which I didn't have a chance to speak, to them. They were talking about things like scarcity. But my point is that when I read the paper, it seems that, novelty seeking could be something they did not consider. I would have put novelty seeking as a potential new direction. And then when you want to add that into your current paper and produce a new paper on that, then you self-cite, for that paper. All right, and then put it through. But you do not want to do a sweatshop. So I just downloaded, one set, of papers, by two researchers. They have got a model, of some kind with only 4 variables. And then they only change the one in the middle, and they've got 11 papers, based on it, just changing that. Now that is sweatshop. All right, there's no research, involved, in that. So you also do not want to be known, for that. So how to avoid self-plagiarizing is that you quote right from the beginning that you've done work in that area and those are your findings. And now you use the word extending the model. All right, and it's always extending the model versus replication is 2 different. Replication means you do exactly the same thing, but you use a different brand. All right, now, and replication is not a strong suit, in research. So you should use the word such as I replicate the paper with extension. All right, and there's a rationale why you're doing that. All right, so make sure you do that. I'd like to know whether you still ready to submit a replica in sample. Oh, I will question that. 10 years ago, I seriously will question that. If I don't question it, your reviewers will question it. So I probably won't do it. How do we re-energize or re-motivate ourselves when an article get rejected? Oh, that's what I told you. Go for a feng shui master, and ask what the master should do. You put some bells and water feature, in your office, and that kind of thing. All right, now that is a joke, all right? But it works for me, all right? So the thing is this, all right? You have got to ask yourself, again, that look at the reviews, all right? Is it too harsh? Is it and read it yourself, again. Is it really true, that the comments, are negative? Speak to another senior, person and see how you can actually improve the paper. You know what? I also come across many cases, including myself. I've done that before. All right, I got this paper rejected. I worked very hard on it. I love, that particular topic. Rejected twice, by different journals. I talked to another researcher, who's supposed to be in the area. And then he has got another idea of it, and then we just add one more study, to it, and invite this person in, and somehow, the paper with another new energy, put into it, all right, and the paper got accepted very quickly. So I think that this is something that you have got to do. But you know what? Is go back to my point, ego. Take away your ego. You may love your something as well, because the thing is one thing, all right, that people always forget. You know what you have done, all right, but the way that you have written, people don't understand what you have done. All right, so you take for granted, you assume people know what you are saying. People just don't understand. So you have got to put it in a clear way, and make sure that it is actually clear. Okay, in the science group, in the science group does a lot of special books, and things like that. Nothing against them. I think they should improve a bit more, but I would comment that I will probably go for, there are many other publishers, right? That's how I'll put it. It's proper that a publisher to do this way. I go to another journal. All right, that's what that will be my suggestion. I'll say go to another journal. In the science group, they are much stronger, in putting special books together, edited books together. All right, so it could be good for some other areas, but I think marketing and management, like I say, there are many other publishers. Go elsewhere. All right, but I have to say though. I think Elsevier also asks you to suggest, 2 to 3 reviewers if you want to. All right, I would actually use that podium, all right, to actually put in names that you want to block. All right, that's how I put it. All right, got a few more questions. Let me finish it. I have a question from the perspective of the journal editorial team, which is still pursuing for school. How can we attract good reviews? Consider what some prefer to submit in. Okay. You know what? Either it is Scopus or whether it's Thomson, the kind of thing. It takes them a long time, to get the index, on. So you have got to really, how would I put it? You will really have got to I'm trying to find a good word so that I will not offend people. All right, I'll go straight up. Gamble. It's a gamble, all right? So you will look at a journal and see, how this is tracking, whether, you got, that you got the good sites, and some measurements, on that. And then you can look at it and see whether there is a possibility that it will be in. Now, if you are looking, at SSCI, of course, they got a different terminology, now. You will know whether this journal is actually under review because they got the emerging citation scores, kind of thing. So you know that they're likely to get SSCI, later on. So you just look for those ranking. Now, I think this goes back to, this is Winnie, right, who asked the question. I think Winnie, this is something I mentioned, earlier on. You have got to go back to the institution. Now, I'm not sure who your co-authors are, but I can tell you, many of the Chinese, universities will never get any leverage, on their publication if they are not SSCI. So you still have got to go, with that. There was the other argument, as well. Someone actually, now I'm not aware of that, to be honest with you. Someone actually said, that the paper published in an, in an index, journal, it also have got to look at when the paper was indexed before it is actually considered, index. So in other words, you may publish a paper in 2019, but the journal got indexed in 2020, your paper may not be considered. But look, it is top-down sort of halo effect. I don't think it is an issue. Now, so for Winnie, my answer to you, all right, will be that if your co-author has got to prefer to go for Scopus, or double SCI, SSCI, journal, you may have got to go with it purely because otherwise, your research, your co-authors, all right, will not get would not be counted, in their performance. All right, so you may have got to look at that. But gamble, you know roughly which journal is going to that, and then you may, because you still take 2 years, to get it reviewed anyway. So you should be looking at that. I'm late. I'm sorry if I explain in your journal. Any tips to avoid this rejection? No, not much tips, but I think you accept this rejection, all right? Unless you got a question. I did mention just now, if the thing is that your way you put it is not clear or things like that, you have to find out why it is desk reject. You could be desk rejected because you didn't conform to the guidelines. Then you can actually resubmit, again later on. I desk reject papers because the scope doesn't, fall under the rim. I desk reject a lot of papers recently because there are 13,000 words, 14,000 words, which I state very clearly is 8K. And then, and also I desk reject papers when I know that I mentioned just now, I just can't find people, in fuzzy, what is it called, methodology. Then if I were to depend, it will depend on me to look for reviewers. It will take 6 months, 8 months, that kind of thing, all right? And it will delay, your paper. So I actually say that you got better prospects, in other journals, all right? Now, sometimes a desk reject is a good thing because then you won't hold your paper on, for too long. But check again, could it be because it is you didn't conform to the guidelines, or you wasn't very clear, when you put things together. There's another desk rejection, that I need to also mention. And this you will know yourself whether you have been sanctioned, because the system actually put in there. For example, if there's a plagiarism case that's happened before, you may be sanctioned for 5 years in that journal. And sometimes it's not in that journal, it's the whole publisher. So for example, in Emerald, sometimes a paper comes in and then it will be a black flag, on top to say that there is a sanction case in another journal, but with that, and it was a serious ethics case, right? So it may just be desk reject, because of that. And but as an author, whether you have that, because they always inform you. All right, 2 more. I've finished it. Reviewers are not paid, but editors are also unpaid. Yes, we are also unpaid. All right, so we are just doing community work, for that. Not really true that we are unpaid. I know that one journal, the editor is paid very handsomely, very, very well, right? But that was more of a conference, an academy journal, so it's a different thing. For us, all right, we generally get some finance to support us for, if let's say I go around for a conference, and I go there and sell or promote my journal, we get some payment, for that. Editors are not really paid. It's more for, operational purposes. We may have that. Last thing, all right, last question. My writing after the presentation in international was rejected in the journal because of 38. Yeah. After revising, can I submit to another international journal? This is what I said earlier on. That's why you have to be very careful with where you publish, and things like that. So if you put into a conference, paper, that means that is double dipping. Turnitin will give you that report. But having said that, in Turnitin, it actually gives you the percentage, like 70% similarly because of this and things like that. So you can actually use the Turnitin, statistics, to explain why you have got such high thing. So you could be that, to say that if it is a conference paper, it has been reviewed by a number of people, and the activity, on it, you can actually substantiate that with your justification, with that. This is what I've been trying to say earlier on. You have got to be very careful because the world is so small and there are so many technologies to measure this, so that you have got to be extremely careful. Publish, what is it called? Extended abstract, that's the way, to look at it. But don't be shy, to say that this paper has been reviewed in these places and things like that. If you allow me a little bit more time, all right, maybe I can talk a bit on this as well. Now, so for instance, all right, if we were to Okay, I'm going to talk about Emerald because I'm familiar with it. All right, so I may have a case of a paper that is submitted to the Journal of brand, and product management. All right, which is in Emerald. All right, and the paper has been rejected that for some reason, and it may send to APJFL. Now, in my system, all right, it is all automated. They will highlight, to say that there's 70% similar with another paper. Then I can read the statistics. Oh, it has been rejected in the other paper, in another journal. So I'll know, that it wasn't a plagiarism or the kind of thing. So it'll be explained. Now, that is the point whereby if it is 99% or 98% similarity, we know that you didn't make any changes and resubmit. All right, and that is not that's not a good look, on you. So again, this is going by the point that you need to make some changes. I think I did quite well. I answered all your questions. All right, I didn't miss anybody out, so I'm quite happy with that.
Yeah,
okay.
you've answered all the questions. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Thanks.
Once again, thank you very much, Professor Ian Phau, for the very interesting session. Thank you very much, and wish you have a really great day.
Oh, thank you so much. All right, I hope that I did my part, and talk to you again. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
And ladies and gentlemen, the next parallel session is going to be studied at 1 p.m. Jakarta time, followed by the announcement of Best Paper Award and closing ceremony at 3 p.m. Jakarta time. So, ladies and gentlemen, all the participants, stay tuned and see you at the closing ceremony. Ladies and gentlemen, just quick announcement. The Best Paper Award is going to be presented at 3:30 p.m. Jakarta time. Once again, the Best Paper Awards is going to be announced at 3:30 p.m. Jakarta time. Thank you very much.